Yeah.
Right? Why did you leave your corporate job and move to Costa Rica?
Because it was slowly killing me on the inside. No, but seriously, I feel like I did the things that I thought I wanted, and it's what my parents wanted, it's what everybody else was doing. And I remember already my bachelor's was an absolute mess. It was the last 2 years that I was able to pull through. I did my bachelor's in Holland, and then I remember I had this vision of being in the States. I used to live in Texas. I was like, I want to go back there. And this is where I had I would say my corporate experience. I worked for a year in an oil and gas company. Then I did my master's in Texas for 2 years. I went balls to the wall. It's almost a way to prove to myself that I could do it, that I could get the good grades because I never got those. And then I did. And then I landed in a corporate job. I was making $60,000 a year at a starting position in oil and gas. And I had the car, I had the flat screen TV, I had my 10 days of vacation a year. And I was just like, what the fuck is this? And then I remember I was in a lottery system. When you graduate in the States in a master's program and you're working for a corporation, they can support you and sponsor you. And I think there were like 250,000 applicants for about 55,000 visas at the time in the States, and I didn't get mine. You don't even hear anything, by the way. They're just like, everybody else does that got it, and you just don't. Then you got to go. Funny enough, my dad was in Holland. He received it, so he went to Texas, and I had to leave Texas, and I went to Holland, and I got an intercompany transfer within this company that I was working for, this large oil and gas company. 100,000 people. And I say that because I was just like, even back then when I was an intern in Texas, I was always working with the Myers-Briggs, the 16 personality types that always really fascinated me. And I was always like, who are the people around me? Like, what are they good at? And as an intern, I would always knock on everybody's doors, VPs, and only the CEO was off limits, but I would just ask questions. I was curious. And I would find out that people didn't even know what was happening down the hall. And it actually impacted them, and they were impacted by each other. And I was like, this is, for lack of a better word, fucking stupid. And I say that because I'm so passionate about other people, and I love being in a place where I can get people to connect and help them be recognized, or just recognize them and be like, yo, you matter to me and I love what you do. And it's just like getting people get shoved into a, a role that doesn't really fit them, you know? And so I remember leaving the States, going to Rotterdam in Holland, working for the same company, and I was doing data analysis. Basically, that meant battling Excel every day. I was working with a lot of foreign people, meeting non-Dutch people, and they learned some Dutch swear words from me, battling Excel. And it's one of those things I'm like, what am I doing here? Like, why did I leave my corporate job? I was like, this is a waste of not only my talents, but the talents of the people around me, and it's driving me crazy. And the mentality was like, you should be happy you have a job. And I'm like, you should be happy you have these amazing people working for you. you know? It's no fault on them. And I was like, this is fucking bullshit. And I just remember being so miserable, like coming home exhausted. And I was just like, this isn't it. And I lasted about a year in that job. And I remember after complaining and complaining to my colleague, we had a big office, it was just the two of us, both battling with Excel. Her doing a better job than me, by the way, in that. And I remember I was making slide decks to basically support my manager, to arm my manager with these slides that had to be ready all the time in case the big corporate office in the States would come over to try and lay off people so we could show how much money we were saving. And I was like, is this what we're doing? It's just a waste. I think the biggest thing is I was not being recognized and seen for my talents, partly because I didn't know what they were per se, or feeling like if I was actually doing what I was good at in this setting, I would have to struggle to get there. And I felt like if I was actually going to be in a position where I wanted to make a difference, I would be so depleted physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually that there would be no coming back from that. And more than anything, if you ask me, why did you leave your corporate job, D? Because I felt like I needed to. I remember finally that Friday afternoon, somewhere in July, something like that, June, looking at my colleague, I'm like, I'm quitting. Friday afternoon. And she burst into tears because she knew I meant it. I remember I called my dad, my mom, and I was like, hey, Mom, Dad, I'm doing this thing. Like, am I crazy? And like, no, like, it's just not working for you. And I realized like, I'm leaving behind security, financial security. I'm leaving behind, I know a career that has sustained my dad and our family. He worked in oil and gas. Like, I know that was all there. And why did I quit? Because I felt like my spirit was just dimming. My light was dimming. I felt like there was something else I was being called to do. I felt like I gave it my all. Even my masters, like my grades were at the top. I did everything this time. I did all the things I could, and I was miserable. And it just didn't feel like my humanness and the humanity of the people around me was being honored either. And I was like, I don't want to be in an environment that is literally not nourishing, where I got to live for the weekend, or where the money in my bank account is somehow supposed to make me feel better about this job. And why do I have to show up, show up at, what was it at the time? I think 8 o'clock and leave at 5. And I would stay late too. Or I would get a message from my boss at 8:30 p.m. It's like, hey, can you finish this thing? I'm like, bro, this is going to take me till like 2 in the morning. He's like, yeah, but we'll figure it out tomorrow. And like, just do this now. And like, tomorrow you can come an hour later. I'm like, why is this about hours too? Like, why can't I just be compensated for my contribution, for my insights? Why does it have to be hourly based? It just doesn't work for me. And this was before I was introduced to the human design system that finally explained a lot of why I was feeling the way I was feeling, not being seen and recognized. And even though I really appreciate the corporate environment for the potential that it can bring out of people, again, I just wasn't seeing it, so I had to leave. I knew I had to. I didn't know what I was going to do next. I had some savings, luckily. But it was time. So why did I leave? Because I knew that if I stayed, I would be selling my soul. And that's not why I'm here. That's why I quit.